Hey, DJ.
What's going on, Wes?
Hey, man, did you know in 1855, William Menger opened the Western Brewery on Alamo Square in San Antonio? Historians now consider it to be Texas's first commercial brewery.
I did not know that, but I think there's a hotel named after him in San Antonio.
I think you're right.
I need to go stay there, see if it smells like beer.
Beer and ghosts. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Live, Love, Wiley podcast, hosted by Wes Dorsey and DJ Shirley. Connecting people in the city we live and love. All right. Welcome back. We got another exciting episode. I've been trying to get this person on the podcast for probably over a year, and we finally made it happen. So today we have Miss Debbie Schoenekase. Did I get it right?
You did.
I've been practicing all morning.
Gold star.
Yep. So welcome to the podcast. Debbie and her husband Steve own Glen Brewery here in Wiley, downtown. So let's get to know you, Debbie.
Okay.
How's it going?
It's going well.
All right.
It's going well.
So let's start out. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up on a cattle ranch in Kansas. My parents still live there with my brother and sister and everyone on the farm, and ended up meeting Steve at the University of Kansas.
Okay, Jayhawks.
Rock Chalk.
There
Absolutely.
you go.
Absolutely. Steve grew up all over the U.S. because his dad was in federal law enforcement. So every 3 years on the day he moved. And for me, I literally grew up in the same house my father was born in. So
you're
totally
a farm
opposite.
girl, and he's traveling the world. A city boy traveled the world.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So totally different. But we met at KU, found a love of basketball and obviously each other. And then we got married, graduated all in the same weekend, and then moved to Dallas. So we have been here since 1992.
Oh, so as soon as you guys graduated, you moved to the Dallas area.
We moved to Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were you? What? So you guys went to college. What did you go to college for? And what professions did you get into after college?
Okay. Well, Steve's the easy one because he got an engineering degree, a civil engineering degree, and he has been a lifelong engineer. He designs roadways and bridges. His claim to fame, I guess, is that he worked on the High Five.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, interchange. But
I remember when that was being built.
Yeah, so do I. It put two kids through college for us. So
There you
very
go.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Steve's always been in engineering, and he continues to work as a full-time engineer right now. But myself, I got a journalism degree from the University of Kansas, and kind of, had a few different jobs. I worked as a marketing coordinator at a retirement village in Dallas. I worked for corporate JCPenney right when they opened. And then I got a job at TRW, which turned into Experian. And so I ended up working for several years there in credit reporting, learned all about credit reporting. And then after I had my son got to kindergarten, and I'm like, you know what? Flying all over talking about credit reporting doesn't seem so, altruistic or the best thing to do for a mom. So I got my certification at UTD to be a high school English teacher, and I ended up teaching English for 10 years in Wiley at the junior high.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Which junior high was it?
Well, I started out at Burnett back when it was just Wiley Junior High. And then when they opened McMillan, I moved to McMillan. And so I did the yearbook and the gifted 7th and 8th grade English. And it was fun. And it's fun now that I can see some of my former students come back. I have a couple students that are like married each other, so that's really cool.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to the Stones. So I had both of them different times, and they ended up getting together and having a family. And
that's really cool,
it's
especially
cool.
when you've been in the area for so long, and then you were, teaching and saw the kids come through, and then they stick around, and you run into them again. And
Yeah.
have they been by the brewery, or is that where you
Yes.
run into them?
I have seen several of them by the brewery. It's funny. Corey Hager was here the other day, and he walked in and he kind of looks at me, and I'm like, Corey Hager? And he's like, Mrs. Schoenekase? I mean, who's to think that their junior high English teacher is running a brewery? I mean, it's
Right.
kind of weird.
It could be,
yeah.
but awesome too, right?
Yeah, it's fun seeing people succeed, because the last time I saw some of these kids, they were 14, and now
Yeah.
they're 32 and have a wife and a baby. So it's
Yeah.
awesome.
You're like, well, man, I don't know if this kid's gonna make it.
I
I'm
knew
just
they
joking.
all
I'm
would make
joking.
it. I knew they all would make
They
it.
all make it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. So, how did you guys? Where did the love of brewing beer or the love of craft beer come from?
Well, I'm going to blame Steve. No, I'm going to give Steve all the credit. He, growing up in a German family, his dad or his grandfather actually made dandelion wine and would take it with him to church functions. And so Steve kind of grew up around that and saw that happen. And then we ended up taking our kids to the Women's World Cup in Germany. And while we were there and did some ancestry work and looked at his ancestry, and we just fell in love with the German beer garden, because we could sit outside with our kids and just relax and talk and play a card game and eat some food. And we're like, wow, why don't we have this in the U.S.? Like, we have bars. We
Right.
don't have a beer garden. And so we came back to Dallas and said, we ought to do something like that someday. And then, as Steve likes to joke, our daughter became a teenager and he started brewing beer. So
To deal with that
to
stress,
deal
right?
with the stress. But no, actually, I was gone with the kids one weekend, and Steve went to the homebrew shop in Dallas and said, hey, I want to brew beer. I'm an engineer. I love this stuff. And they said, okay, here, $100 can buy you a kit to make your very first beer. He did it in a 5-gallon bucket. And then the bucket became, several burners on the stove. And then it became the one-car garage is now a little brewery. And then it was
Just grew from there.
hey, we're opening a brewery. And yeah.
So there. When did the big craft beer craze? What year did that really kick off in Texas? Or has it always been there and a lot of us just didn't realize it?
No, Texas is very unique in the alcohol laws that we have. So we could only have production breweries. You couldn't have a tap room and a manufacturing brewery together. So people like Spotzel that make Shiner, they would, you could go through a tour and you could test something, but pretty much they just put out bottles of beer. You couldn't just go there and have a drink in the tap room. And that's because, according to Texas, you have to either be a manufacturer, a distributor, or a retailer of alcohol, of beer, actually, malt beverage, but you can't be more than one. You can only be one. So a lot of the breweries, Lakewood and Garland, they were production breweries. And then in about 2015-16, the legislature says, well, you know what? You can go into a winery and see where they produce wine and have a glass of wine. Why can't you do that for beer? So that's when the laws changed in Texas, where you could actually have a tap room and have it opened as a production facility and as a tap room. So our license, we're not a retailer. We're considered a manufacturer. We manufacture malt beverage on site, and then you can come in on site and drink that beverage. Then in a few years later, Texas law changed where you could have beer to go. So we can also sell our beer in the tap room, and you can take a can of beer home or to the lake. That's why we put it in cans and not bottles, so people can take it out and about.
Yeah, because we're close to the lake and stuff.
Close to the lake, so yeah.
So it's relatively new. I mean, within the last 10 years.
Absolutely. Texas
okay.
was very far behind. Every other state had many breweries for many years before we really got the idea of a tap room that you could go in and hang out with your kids or your dogs or whatever.
Right.
Just have
And it's
place.
more of the German beer garden feel, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So let's back up. So Steve's brewing, taking over the garage.
Yes.
Making a small brewery, and he's brewing beer, and
Yes.
and you guys are testing it, and I guess he's sharing it with friends and stuff. At what point, in what year was this? This was before tap rooms?
No, tap rooms were just kind of starting.
Okay.
So in about 2000, I guess it was maybe 2000, we went to Germany in 2011. In 2018, he had started brewing beer between 11 and 18. And 2018, our daughter was in high school, and I needed to go to the library in Fort Worth, still an English
Yeah.
teacher, journalist, and we were doing some ancestry, and I told Steve, I said, well, if you drive me to Fort Worth, maybe we can find like one of those, breweries we can go to. And he said, okay. So we spent a couple hours in the ancestry section of the Fort Worth Library. And then we went 5 minutes away to Cowtown Brewing in downtown Fort Worth. And Steve looked around and said, we're going to open one of these. And so I took a picture of Steve with his Cowtown Brewing mug and sent it to both of our kids and said, hey, Dad says he's opening a brewery. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And so that 2019 is when he said, no, we're doing it.
He's
And
like, hold my beer and watch this.
absolutely. And he had, he has had a poker party at the house for years. And all of his engineering buddies would come and play poker once a month or a couple times, actually, maybe 6 times a year anyway. And he always had beer, and they loved getting free beer. And Steve's like, oh, everyone says my beer is really good. I said, well, honey, your beer is free. So let's make sure it's better than just free. And so he started brewing a lot more. And for his 50th birthday, we had a whole bunch of people at the house, and we actually even had a band. We did one big blowout birthday. And the German band that came, the guys afterwards said, we go to a lot of parties and the beer is terrible. Your beer is good.
Really? That's great
And
feedback. Yeah.
so once we got that, then he was not looking back. So I'm like, okay, let's do it.
So once he decided, or you guys decided that you were going to open up a brewery,
Right.
What steps did you go through to figure out, all right, one, where are we going to open it, right? And what's the process of doing such?
Right. So the first thing we did was we joined the Texas Craft Brewers Guild, which is a godsend because it really is a co-op of other brewers that we have a meeting once a month. We get together, we meet at a brewery, and everyone just shares. They share recipes, they share what works, what doesn't work, and we really got to know people in the guild. And then we went to a conference in Houston at St. Arnold's Brewery called Brewery in Planning, and it was put on by a Texas guy that's opened BJ's restaurants.
Okay.
So, and he started with "There's no crying in beer," and we all laughed. And he goes, "Okay, now if you really are crazy enough to do this, I'm going to spend 3 days teaching you like what you need to start. Everything from doing your LLC to getting a TABC liquor license, and how you staff it, how you run it, the compliance reporting for the state and the federal government is." I mean, it's a pretty robust compliance to get a place to make alcohol.
Right.
So we went through that, and then literally we started looking at where would this be. We wanted it close to home. We live in Parker, and our kids went to Wiley schools and Plano schools, so we wanted something close to home where we felt like we could hang out and our friends could hang out. So we looked a lot of places. The laws, for example, like in Murphy, you have to sell so much food to be able to have your liquor license.
Mm-hmm.
So that we were not going to do. I don't want to run a restaurant. That's not our forte.
Right. So you've got the state laws, and then you've got your city laws too that you've got to deal with, right?
Right. Each city has their own law. For example, St. Paul, you cannot sell alcohol in St. Paul. It's a dry town. So the county too. So you look at Dallas County, Collin County, all of the little towns around here, and we actually had settled on property right behind the caboose in Saxe because Steve, being an engineer, wanted to build a ground-up building.
Right.
So we
As
bought...
civil engineers want to do, right?
Absolutely. And, of course, he picked a lot that had some drainage issues because he could fix that. No, anyway, it was a beautiful spot right behind the caboose, right there at 5th and 78.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called a friend of mine who I worked with in teaching, Sylvia Heffer, and I said, hey, you do real estate? And she goes, absolutely. I said, we see some land. So the land was not listed for sale. Sylvia found out who owned it and literally knocked on the man's door in McKinney and said, "Hey, do you want to sell this corner lot to people that want to buy it?" And so we worked out a deal. We bought the land. Everything was great. And then 2 weeks later, COVID.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So COVID hit. You couldn't get steel to build a building. You know, the cost doubled, tripled, all of that stuff. We are still working on getting some financing through the bank. And I must say, we had a little bit of a problem working out something with Saxe where we didn't have to rebuild a road. They wanted us to rebuild a road. And I said, you know, we're just Debbie and Steve with a dream.
That little road that goes from Fifth and
Yeah,
that goes across by
right.
behind the railroad tracks. Is that the road?
DeWitt.
Oh yeah. Okay.
DeWitt Road, which is not a good road. And, you know, in going to Brewers Guild meetings, a lot of people said, well, the cities will help you. You know, they'll help you with either acquiring land or giving you a great place to lease or whatever. And I knew, having grown up on the farm, the one thing that you always have is property and land. So I told Steve, I said, I don't want to lease a somewhere in the strip mall that if we do well in 3 years, the rent
They're
goes
gonna
way up.
triple the rent.
Right.
Yeah.
So we said we would build or buy something. We weren't going to lease anything, which of course gave, you know, our banker heartburn, but that's okay. We worked it out, and on paper it looked great. So anyway, we just could not come to an agreement with the city of Saxe on who was building a road. So we sold the land. We got back all of our money that we put in engineering and all of this stuff. And so we had meetings with several of the cities, and I called the Economic Development Council, the EDC here in Wiley.
Shout out EDC.
Yes, absolutely. And I said, hey, we want to open a brewery. And they said, come on in. And so I met with Jason Greiner and Angel Wygant, and I showed them our marketing plan, our pro forma, everything we had done for the bank. And they're like, dude, let's make it happen. We own three buildings in downtown Wiley. Let's do it. And I was like, wow. So truly within a week, Steve and I were looking at buildings, measuring ceiling heights, looking at how close doors were to schools or churches or whatever, because, you know, there are certain parameters about that. And I really wanted to buy what used to be the post office on Jackson.
Yeah.
And Steve was okay with it, but I'm like, oh, this is good. And then they also took us to what was K&M Auto there at Birmingham, right across from where the Christmas train stops. And I'm like, I don't know, that's pretty rough, you know, looking on the inside. And Steve's like, oh, no, new concrete, new this.
Oh, he put the
it'll
engineering
work.
hat on, yeah.
He did, and I didn't see his vision, but we ended up buying that building from the city and totally tearing out the foundation and starting over with foundation and electrical, because a lot has to go into running the equipment that we have, the manufacturing equipment. And we have a floor drain, and so it had to slope a certain way. But he obviously is a great engineer, and he engineered it, and we got it done. And so we are open at 106 North Birmingham, right across from the railroad tracks. If you know where Linky's Barbecue is, you can smell Clint's Barbecue from our patio.
Right. Yeah, it's a great location. You guys done a great job there.
Thanks.
So what were some of the, you know, how long did that whole process take? I mean, you said you started in Saxe in 2020, around when COVID hit, and luckily, you know, the real estate market went through the roof that year.
Yes.
So you were able to sell that property, recoup not only what you paid for it, but the engineering costs and the due diligence that you put in towards that. So that was in 2020. And then, you know, how long did the whole process take to get from Saxe over to Wiley? And I know you guys were working on that building for quite a while.
Yeah, the building took a while. So we worked with Wiley starting in 2020, 2020, 21, somewhere in there, and we opened in February of 24. We're almost at a year being opened. So the 3.5, 4 years, we had to get a general contractor for the building. Even though Steve was an engineer, we had to hire an engineer because he couldn't work on his own stuff. We had to find a bank that would finance that. Then we went the route of an SBA loan as well. So we have a bank loan and an SBA loan, and then obviously we put in our money too. That took a long time, just because you can't finish the loan until the building's done.
Right.
And the building can't be done until everything is designed and approved and inspected. So the city was very good. The inspection, I could put something out on their online system, and within a day, they would be out looking at electrical or looking at plumbing or whatever. So I must say, everyone's like, oh, the city's terrible to deal with. The city was not terrible to deal with. The city was fabulous, even to the point that they would come in and they say, we're here to inspect this today, but before we come out tomorrow to look at this, you might want to think about redoing this or whatever. They were very forward thinking, very helpful, and very responsive. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but to be honest, having been a journalist, I had no idea what I was in for.
Yeah, we hear that a lot from business owners about how easy and business friendly that the Wiley EDC and the city of Wiley are to business owners, and it's just it's a blessing here. We have got a great community. I love Wiley, hence the podcast. But
Yep.
we get that a lot, and so big shout out to the city of Wiley. So, has there been, like, when you had plans to open the brewery, was there a minimum amount of equipment that you wanted to put in, or is it like it is today, the exact same way as when you opened it?
Okay, well, the equipment is the same. So we went to 2 different National Brewers Association conventions, the Craft Brewers Conference, CBC, and we went to one in Denver and one in Minneapolis, and we climbed on a lot of equipment. We looked at a lot of shiny stuff. I saw dollar signs, and Steve saw vats and fermenters and all of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, we get big shiny things. And so we did a lot of due diligence in looking at equipment. We talked to some people that had run breweries before and were succeeding. And we talked to Darren Peterson. Shout out to Darren. Love him. He was the very first brewer in Wiley that had opened Good Neighbor Brewing.
Okay, yeah.
So we met with him and said, hey, can you give us some help? And he said, I absolutely will tell you everything, the good, the bad, how it works, what doesn't work. And he was wonderful to share his experience with us. So we, in putting together our plan on financially how this all would work, we decided that we were going to spend the money on new equipment, and then look at saving some money on the building and the fixtures and furniture. So, because what happens, a lot of people buy used equipment and within a year it's not working or they're patching it. If you think about buying a used car, you just don't know what you're getting.
Right.
And with manufacturing, and Steve and I are not 20-something, so we're like, we need a few processes where we're not running a million hoses, but where we can automate a few things. So we ended up picking the Deutsche 10-barrel system. It is brand new. It cost more than our first house by far.
It's beautiful in there, though. Yeah,
Thank
it's nice
you.
and shiny. Yeah.
Thank you. We have 4 big tanks. We have a mash tun, a whirlpool kettle. We have a cold liquor tank, which is just water, and a hot liquor tank, which is just water. And then we have 3 fermenters, which is where we put the beer to mix with the yeast to actually make the alcohol. And then we have one thing called a bright, and the bright tank is for a lager when you've already fermented it and it just has to sit and wait like our Oktoberfest beer does. It sits in the bright tank for a while. So all of that equipment is brand new. The cold room is brand new that was come and assembled. But I tell you what, the booths, the tables, the chairs, the bar, the serving area, all of that was bought at auction, and we have repurposed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, the whole aesthetic is just kind of cool. Just kind of come in and chill and have a great beverage. Yeah.
Yeah, we I will tell a funny story. So I have a thing about bathrooms and making sure that they are comfortable and clean.
Yeah.
So during COVID, we had a lot of time to think about bathrooms. And because we gutted this building, we could start from the beginning. So we said, well, first of all, we'll make them unisex because we don't need a line of men or a line of women. Let's just have bathrooms and
Right.
people can take one. And then I said, well, they need to, the door needs to swing out, not in, because if you're a woman, you have stepped in with your purse or your kid or whatever, and then you have this, it just doesn't work. So we plan these bathrooms, and we have light switches where there's a little timer because I don't like lights staying on all the time. But when we came to the sink, you know, it was COVID and no one wanted to touch a faucet. But, you know, having all of the electronics and all of the stuff is very expensive to go have motion sensors on every fixture. So Steve and I came up with this idea that we wanted to have pumps that you push your foot and the water comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we went up to my parents' farm in Kansas, and I asked Dad, I said, do you have any old pumps around? And he said, well, I think there's one like on the back 80, you know, it's been there for years. We literally dug in the mud and dug out one water pump, and the other one was still hooked up, but they wanted to move it. So we cut it off, brought it home, and so the two pumps where the communal sink is for hand washing came from the Kansas farm.
Really?
Yes, we painted
Wow.
them, and then we went to Tractor Supply and got our little tank, and that's what the water basin is. But it's totally germ free. You just press the pedal, the water comes out. You walk away, the water goes off because you move your foot. So we love it. A lot of people talk about it, and we think that's one of the cool things about breweries. When we go other places, we're like, oh, that's such a great idea. Did you see how they, you know, put a tap in their cold room where people get their own water? So we're like, we got to do that.
Yeah.
So of course we've done that.
Take the best ideas from all over and bring them in.
Absolutely.
Sounds like some of Steve's engineering rubbed off on you on those bathrooms.
Well, you know, I have been known to look at a few pictures and say, honey, and he's like, oh, I don't know. And then within a day, he's like, you know, if we do this, this, and this,
thought
I
about
can
it.
make that happen.
There you go. Yeah. So let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about where the name Glen Echo came from.
Ah, okay, that is all Steve, and it goes back to his family. So when we did the genealogy work, we found out that his family predominantly comes from a town, I will say this wrong, Rumspringer. I don't know. It depends if you make it
Rumspringer?
German or English. Yes, it's north central Germany, and the Schoenekases came from Rumspringer, Germany, and they had a dairy farm. And so we tried to find a dairy farm. We went and talked to actually the mayor of the town and the banker who had written a book about the town and the history. We never did find the cattle or where the parcel was exactly in the town. But we do know from ancestry records that Steve's great-great-grandfather, Hermann Schoenekase, came from Rumspringer, Germany, to the U.S. when he was 16 by himself. And he started on the East Coast and moved to Quincy, Illinois after a few years of getting money and moving. And then his son opened a dairy farm.
Okay.
And he called it Glen Echo. So we were hoping, you know, that we would find some Glen Echo, some record in Germany. We have not found that yet, but we're not giving up.
Right.
But yeah, the dairy goes back to the early 1900s in Quincy, Illinois. And Steve's dad remembers being at the dairy farm. We have pictures on our wall in the brewery of a Schoenekase in a covered wagon and delivering milk. And then he moved up and he got a huckster and he was delivering milk that way. I have 3 milk bottles at home that say Glen Echo Brewing. I don't even want to tell you what I paid for them online in an auction, but by gosh, I won that auction. So
You had to.
I had to,
Yeah.
because the farm was sold in the 60s and it's now a subdivision, you know. And so apparently all the milk bottles went into some pit and they
Covered it
just
up.
covered it up. So someday I'd like to get the milk bottles in the brewery, but I just don't know where we could display them. So nothing, I just don't want them to break because they are. I think one bottle says 1912 on it.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
they're old.
That is old. That's good history though, right?
Yeah.
So the name goes back way back.
Yes.
Awesome. So, all right. Your current setup with all your tanks and stuff. How many different beers do you brew through that system?
Oh gosh, like have we totally brewed through that system, or
Well,
can we?
Well, can you, or how many do you have on tap now? And what? I mean, have you brewed some and then they just didn't work out and switched recipes and called it something else? Kind of like let's walk through that.
Absolutely. So, the Texas Craft Brewers Guild has a saying about, the rising tide raises all ships. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that correctly.
Oh,
How does that go?
Rising tide raises all ships. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So their idea is that if a person goes to a craft brewery and they have a bad beer, they kind of get this idea that all craft breweries have bad beer.
Right.
So we all want to have very high standards and make good beer. So Steve, obviously being an engineer and knowing how to do things the right way, we have brewed some things that have got dumped out.
Terribly wrong.
Terribly wrong. And the sad thing about the brewing situation is you don't know it's bad until it's done. So you spend all the money in the grain and you brew it, and it may take 6-7 hours to brew, and you put it in the fermenter. And if it's an ale, it may take 2 or 3 weeks to ferment. And then you carbonate it, and then you taste it, and then you go, that's bad.
Yeah.
And then you don't sell it.
So
that's happened a few times.
and so do you guys sit down and come up with ideas like let's try to make a beer out of this? How do the different flavors and types of beer come about?
Okay, well, I would say Steve takes the lead on that. He obviously starts with, his favorite beers are German beers. Maybe because the first breweries that we went to were in Germany, and that he really associates good beer with German beer because they have a purity law, and they say that beer is only made with yeast, water, grains, and you don't just add stuff. In America, I mean, Steve and I literally went to a brewery that had put a turkey and stuffing in the kettle because they were trying to make a Thanksgiving beer. That's crazy.
That's weird.
It was weird. It was not good, and that's not what we do. So, Steve's idea is that we start with kind of, I don't want to say the basics, but what I would say is a stable group of beer. So we have on tap right now, we have a Kolsch, which is a German light beer, kind of like a blonde beer. Mm-hmm. We have a Hefeweizen, which is a German wheat beer. We have a Bock, which a lot of people know, the Shiner Bock, so that's a little bit darker beer. We have an Amber that's a very malty beer. We have a chocolate milk stout, which is a nod to the dairy farm because it's a milk stout, and then it's got a touch of chocolate in it.
I love that one.
Yeah, thank you. We love that one too. And then we have an IPA, which is a traditional West Coast IPA. It's a little hoppier, a little more citra flavor. And those beers were kind of where Steve wanted to start and always have on tap. And then from that, he will maybe brew the Hefeweizen and add, I don't know, a lingonberry or something. So we will get to have seasonal beers other than just the Oktoberfest, but we really need about 8 on tap every day before we can raise it up to say 14. We have the capacity to have 14 taps. We do have an orange seltzer that is brewed without any grain, so it's 100% gluten-free.
I like that one too.
Yeah, that one is like orange Fanta
It
with
is.
a kick. And there are people that are, they come in and they're like, I don't like beer, but I'm here with my husband, or I'm here for a birthday party or whatever. And I'm like, well, I will happily give you a splash of any beer you want to try, but if you like wine or mixed drinks, have a taste of this seltzer. And everyone's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's very popular, I believe.
Yeah. And we also brew a root beer. that is 100% non-alcoholic. You can't legally brew root beer anymore with sassafras, so there's no alcohol content or anything like that in there. But we have a lot of people that come in and, they just don't want to drink that day, or they'll have one and then they'll finish their night with a root beer.
So is making root beer similar to making a regular beer?
Well, yes and no. I mean, you still have to have all of the sterilization and the
Right.
cleaning process and all of that, but you just don't have the fermentation time.
Right.
So it maybe only takes, a few hours to make a batch of root beer, because you don't have to wait the couple weeks in the fermenter with the yeast. But you still have to carbonate it. So it does take some time.
Right. So you've got your basic 8 beers, right, that are staples.
Yes.
And then from those 8, Steve may make a variant,
Yes,
just
exactly.
to kind of a special one-off type deal to test it out, or a seasonal or whatever, right?
Right. And so I keep saying this is our first rodeo. We have not been in business a year yet. It'll be like February 21st is our anniversary. But really, our first year, we wanted to concentrate on getting good beers that we were comfortable with, to understand our system, because, it's a little bit different brewing a small batch at home and then a 10-barrel system. So we wanted to feel comfortable with our recipes before we kind of start the one-offs.
Right.
So hopefully in this next year we'll get to that. We are going to bring on a new seltzer. We have been working on a blue seltzer. Let me be honest, it is not good yet. I say yet because, it's like anything else. When you cook at home and you try a recipe and you haven't perfected it yet, you just keep working at it. So we are continuing to work on our blue seltzer, which we will add. It kind of goes with our logo colors of orange and blue.
Right.
And one thing I will add, just on a side note, a lot of people come in and they say, well, do you have a cider? Well, the answer is no, and it's always going to be no, because by law, we cannot have a cider. We are considered a manufacturer of malt beverage. And cider, mead, all of that, wine, totally different. So our license only allows us to have a malt beverage that we make on site, because we're not a retailer. We don't have anyone else's beer. We only have what we make, and
Right.
that's just the restrictions of our license.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so your system, so you 10-barrel system,
Yep.
right? And you've got 8 different beers that are standard on tap.
Yep.
So what's the how many, I guess, kegs does it 10 barrels make?
18 to 20.
18 to 20?
Depending on how much grain was in it and how much liquid we get from the mash.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out, or think in my head, is the process of, are you continually brewing one of those staple beers
Yes.
every day, or what's the brewing schedule like?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, the brewing schedule is difficult because when I did secure that loan from the bank, I promised our banker that Steve would stay working for 2 years. So he is a full-time engineer for 2 years. So he can only brew beer when he's not working and when we are not open. So, I mean, it gets loud, it gets hot.
Oh, yeah.
Pumps kick on and motors and the compressor and things like that. So we don't ever brew when we're open. We may be cleaning when we're open, but we're not actually brewing. So, for example, Monday is a holiday. And so Steve will be brewing 2 beers on Monday, a double batch
Okay.
Of beer. He is doing a red ale, which is a first time he's brewed that on our system. So hopefully it turns out. I don't want to promise a red ale on tap in 3 weeks because we don't know.
It's knock on wood.
It's gotta pass his test. And then he's brewing, I don't know. I didn't see the grain bill he put it in. But he's brewing one of our staple beers, just brewing it
Right.
again. But
So I'm sure that you have some beers that are more popular than others, so they need to be brewed more often, right?
yeah, and they're very seasonal. And so, for example, in the summer, you don't sell a lot of chocolate milk stout. But in the winter, we do. And actually, the chocolate milk stout, we had, way back when we opened, we had a bartender and a general manager of the Lazy Dog in Garland that just opened off of 190 come in and try
It's
our
a great
beer.
restaurant.
Yes, yes, it is. They came in and tried our beer and said, "Hey, we're opening this Lazy Dog in Garland. We want a local brewery to be on tap." And so they tried all of our beers, and they really wanted our amber beer. And then more people came in and tried it, and more people. And before you know it, we're distributing a keg to Lazy Dog, and that's gone well. But they called and said, "Hey, it's getting cold. We want a chocolate milk stout now." So we changed them to a chocolate milk stout about a month ago, and then just last week, their corporate woman called and said, "Well, we want the chocolate milk stout in all of the Lazy Dogs in Dallas." So yes, so that's when,
Wow.
like I said, Steve has a schedule, but then when you get a call from Lazy Dog, you're like, "How much chocolate milk stout do we have in the cold room?" And maybe we should brew that again next,
Right.
like tomorrow. So yeah, we're just learning. Truly, it is our first rodeo. We do not know how often we need to brew. You know, the things that I thought as running the tap room, I thought, gosh, we're going to be really busy during spring break. We're not. Everyone's gone.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be crazy Thanksgiving week. Everyone will be gone and seeing their family. Oh no, we were busy because everyone brought their family with them to the brewery. So we're learning kind of how often we brew, what we brew when. But Steve will brew several times a month. But
Right.
it's not, it's not an everyday thing. It's, I would think going forward, maybe it's a once a week thing until it picks up, and in a couple of years he can quit his engineering job and brew more.
So let's say you mentioned Monday he's going to brew two different batches.
Yes.
So how long does it take from start to finish to brew a batch? Is it
Oh, it could be anywhere from maybe about 6 hours. Um, just because when you double brew, the cleaning process, you clean between the brews, but you don't have to sanitize between the brews because, you're not shutting it down and
right?
all of
You
that. So,
sanitize at the very end.
yes. So you clean, but you don't sanitize, which are two totally different things. But yeah, he'll start in the morning by milling the grain, and we put it through the mill, and it'll get crushed, and it'll go in, and he'll make the mash, and he'll kettle whirlpool it, and um, when it gets whirlpooled and then knocked out to the fermenter, then he can be starting to. He gets rid of the old grain, which goes to the Disc family here in town. They have a ranch, and they have some cattle, so they feed all their spent grain to their cattle.
Okay.
Yes, we don't want the grain sitting with us, and so we give it to them, and
They come pick it up
they
and
come
haul it
pick
up.
it up and haul it off. And I've seen pictures of their horses, and they're
Very happy.
very happy, very happy. That little shorthorn, it's really happy. Anyway, so once the grain's gone through, we'll rinse out the grain, and then we can just start with another one. But
Right.
it makes for a terribly long 14-hour rough day for Steve. But he loves it. I mean, this is what he loves to do. And he loves to do it well, and he's very process oriented being an engineer. So that's why his brews, he does a good job.
I know one night he actually I was there and he walked me through the whole process, which was really really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny learning the process because Steve knew the process from home brewing. And then when we went to the bank, and the bank said, "Well, Debbie, how about you? Can you brew beer?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, absolutely not. This is not what I do at all." And he goes, "Well, you need to learn." And I'm like, "Well, why do I need to learn?" And he goes, "Well, what if Steve breaks his leg? I mean, that's not a very good, that's a liability. Both of you need to learn to brew." So I laughed hysterically, and Steve's like, "It's not that hard. It'll be fine. It'll be fine." So we talked to some people at the Brewers Guild, and they said, "Well, actually, Dallas is very fortunate. We have a star brewer in the Dallas area. His name is Peter Botcher. He is German, and he used to be the head of Brewing for Miller International.
Oh wow.
He started out in Germany brewing and teaching classes and running big operations, and he ended up his career as a brewer working for Miller International, and now he teaches a class on journeyman brewing. So the bank said I should take that class. Steve took it with me just kind of as moral support. He told me it would not be difficult, and the first 2 weeks were German chemistry. And I'm like, wow, okay.
And you've got your English background, right? Your
Yeah, it
journalism.
was, I kept looking at the slides going, I don't think that's how you spell that, but that's okay.
There's there's math people and then there's English people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it sometimes it's hard to cross over.
Yes, well, Steve's got one handled, I've got one handled,
Yeah,
but the in
exactly.
between is a little difficult. But anyway, we ended up going through the Journeyman Brewers class with Peter, and then part of that process was to also do an internship. So we interned at OHB, Oak Highlands Brewery. Shout out to Ryan and Dustin and Brad, and we brewed with them and then canned with them and learned all the processes from them. And it's really nice to have. I mean, we do not want me brewing beer. We just don't. This is not my thing.
It's emergencies, right?
Right.
Back
I
up.
mean, I can take orders very well and move a hose and everything, but Steve just has the knack for it. And so it's nice to know what he knows and to understand the process, but I'm truly going to let him be the cook in the kitchen and make the beer.
Absolutely. That's cool. It's really, you talk about the Brewing Guild, it's good to have a resource like that
Yeah.
to go and, especially, you said earlier, the guy that started BJ's
Yeah.
was, helped you guys figure out how to set up an LLC, work around all the laws and kind of figure out that. And to have somebody like that as a mentor to kind of shorten up some of those learning curves is huge, right?
Yeah, it's funny because the brewing industry, people aren't in competition with each other. I mean, the statistics say that most people that go to your brewery are within 7 miles. So if you're outside of the 7 mile radius, it's not a competition. Besides, a lot of people like to go to several breweries. You know, Steve and I will go to one, like when we go to San Antonio for his on business, maybe he gets sent there. And, you know, in the evening, it's like, well, let's go to this brewery this night and let's go to this brewery the other night. And it's, again, not a competition. You just kind of like the variety of it. So I find that, you know, we'll have brewers come in and talk to us. And the guy from Bankhead was in a couple months ago. And, you know, he's telling us everything he's brewing. We're telling him everything we're brewing. And it's just a camaraderie, kind of like a fraternity of brewers. And it's really good.
It's really cool because you don't find that in a lot of industries.
Right.
Just the level of support. Because I've known other people or friends that have started breweries and it's the same thing. They go around all over the place and shout out everybody and tell everybody what the best beer is they found here and there, and it's a huge support system.
Yeah. I think part of it is just the idea of a brewery is about community. I mean, again, going back to the German beer garden, it's just a place to hang out and talk, put the phone down, play a card game, do something like that. And so the people that are interested in being in a brewery are very communal people. And I mean, Steve is very social. You come into the brewery, he wants to talk to you. I mean, that is,
Yeah.
he loves brewing beer and talking to people. So that very much works for him. But so I think that it's just because of the industry, you know, we're not a group of loners. Everyone likes to share and tell stories and just hang out and relax.
So for the people or for anybody that hasn't been to Glen Echo, see, I messed up a word,
That's
Glen
okay.
Echo Brewery, kind of like give them like a visualization of the layout and the vibe and, what kind of events you guys do there. Cause some people may be surprised that you guys fenced in the front parking lot for like a patio, right?
Well, it's not fenced in, but yes, okay, so
I always
What-
come in the back door. That's
oh, okay. No, you're not fenced in. So the layout. So we are off of Birmingham Road. What used to be the parking lot of the auto mechanics shop has, I don't know, maybe 10 parking spots. And when we went to the city council and got our special use permit, we negotiated and made those 8 parking spots a patio.
right.
So we have a great patio area. And the city, I don't know if everyone knows, but the city has purchased the land in front of us that's the right of way of the Railroad. They have purchased that to make it a parking lot for the city. So to try and get all the downtown parking situated, it's going to be there by the railroad track. So anyway, our patio, we have outside tables and chairs and picnic tables. And then you walk in the building. We have 4,100 square feet inside. It is air conditioned and it is heated, but we do have two big overhead doors that were left from the mechanic shop. So we can open the doors on a good day. Like this afternoon, it's supposed to be, I think, 67. So it's good patio weather. We'll open the big doors, and that way people can just come in and out. Kind of like your own patio. You feel comfortable going inside or outside. Inside we have tables, chairs. We have a couch area that a few of our regulars are like always, as soon as they walk in, you know exactly which chair they're sitting in. We have some booths, high and low, so people can kind of pick the tables that they like that's comfortable. And you just come right up to the bar and order. And so you don't come in and just sit at a table, but you come in and you look at what we have on tap and talk to a beer tender. Our doors are open to all ages. So you'll see people come in with little kids, people come in with a dog, people come in, grandparents, parents, and younger kids. So it's a family atmosphere. We're allowed to do that. We're also allowed where we don't have a kitchen, you can bring in your dog. So the dogs can be inside or outside, which a lot of people love their dog on the patio, but when it's 108 and the concrete's hot, inside is best, obviously. But then you can also bring in food from other places. So I know that when we first started talking about opening a brewery, some of the downtown merchants were like, oh no, we don't need another restaurant to compete with. Well, we're just the opposite. We want you to go to a downtown restaurant or some place in Wiley and get it to go and come hang out at the brewery. Or you can bring food from home. I've had people walk in with Tupperware and pasta from home. So you can just, eat food, or you can get Napoli's delivers. Lots of places deliver. So it's just kind of a casual place. We have one screen right now. We're going to end up having two, but one screen that'll show a game. We always have music playing, unless it's a big game, and then we'll turn off our music inside and have actual sound to the game, and then patio music outside. We have.
I mean, like Monday's the college football championship game, right? It's the national championship, but you guys are going to be closed?
We are closed on Monday and Tuesday, and of course, Steve is brewing all day.
That's right.
Loud, hot, all that. So
you won't be able to watch it at Glen Echo.
not at Glen Echo, but there are other places in Wiley that I'm sure would love to have you there. So So the things that we have coming up, we do some interesting things in the tap room. I think so. We have done line dancing on a Thursday night. Free, the lady that comes in and teaches it for free, and then people just tip her. She's fabulous. We have done some yoga. We've done puppy yoga. That's a lot. That was a lot.
That sounds like a lot.
It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of puppies running everywhere. In the spring, we're going to do some chair yoga outside. We have food trucks every Friday. Tonight we have On the Hook.
Okay.
Coming from 3 to 7. So I work with lots of different food trucks. Fry Pies is a local food truck, and they're coming for the Super Bowl. Going to be there on Sunday afternoon. Let's see. In addition to food trucks, we've had some jewelry events. We've had some trucker hats made there. Just all sorts of things.
So that brings up a good point. So some other local businesses, if they want to put together an event, they could reach out to you and schedule that and have it at the brewery, right?
Absolutely. So our thought is that we just want to be a gathering place. So if you have a food truck and you want to come out, you can reach out to me. I'm not going to take any of your profits. I'm not charging you anything. I just want my people to have access to food and you to have access to my people. So that's kind of just mutual how we work with anyone. I've had jewelry vendors come out and they'll say they're going to be there on Thursday for 3 hours, and I give them a table. They set up, they do their own business. People like to kind of come and look around and see something different, and and it works out really well. Kind of like an ongoing little farmers market, craft market, but just one at a time. I mean, I haven't done any huge events where I have 10 or 12 vendors. Not saying we won't in the future, but like, for example, on my food truck, I only ever just have one food truck because, we are a small area and I don't want to just divide the people out. And,
Right.
and, I want to make sure it's worth their while to be there as well.
And helping out, other business owners with what they're doing as well. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Kind of like what the guild does with you guys.
Yeah.
Just kind of reach out and help other business owners. So where can people find your calendar of upcoming events?
Okay, so I keep it up to the minute. I mean, truly. So it is a Google Calendar on our website. So you can go to glenechobrewing.com, and there is a side that says events down the side, and you can click on that, and it literally syncs with my Google Calendar. I think I put on the parade for next year's Christmas parade. I put it on a couple weeks ago when the city released all of their dates for the 2025. I put every date already out there. So anything that I have planned is out there and it's available and you can look.
I was actually on your website earlier and I actually saw that you had this recording this podcast on the calendar.
Yes.
For today.
Yes. I had someone last night we had a herdsman meeting, kind of our mug club first meeting of the year. And he said, "Hey, can I come watch the podcast?" I said, "Well, it's not at the brewery. I mean, I guess you could come watch it from the Speak Loud Media shop in Wiley, but no, he laughed. But no, I want people to know what we're doing and that we're part of the community. I go to chamber meetings and I go to downtown merchant meetings, and there's just Wiley has a lot to offer. I mean, we have a community college and we have lots to do. And shout out to my other. What do I want to say? My partners in the beverage industry, Landon and Herman Marshall, they've been great to work with. And it's really fun to see what we can do. We're trying to collaborate on more things. I want people to know that you don't have to drive to Plano or McKinney to go out.
No, you got the trifecta downtown.
We do. We have
you got
the
the
trifecta.
brewery, you got the distillery, and you got a winery.
I know.
There's something for everybody.
Yeah, we're crushing it in Wiley.
Yeah,
we are
absolutely.
crushing it.
It doesn't get much better than that.
No, it's good.
Awesome. So people can find you on. You got all your socials. DJ will post them below. Everybody can go and follow and
Yeah.
keep up with you guys.
And, every week I try and post on Monday or Tuesday what's happening. We always have trivia on Wednesday nights from 6:30 to 8:30. Head Tilt comes out, and it's funny because Steve and I have been to many trivia games, and the one thing that I wanted for our trivia is for it to be faster and not so slow with turning in slips of paper.
Right.
And so we hired Head Tilt, and they come out, and one person on your team answers it on their phone through a QR code, and it instantly posts up on the big screen.
I've played this. It's fun.
And it is fun because it's fast, and it's not like it's multiple choice. So you have, I don't know, a minute to come up with which one is it, who was the first Beatle to do this, and you have to answer the question. And it's really fun. Kenley, our MC, is fabulous. I mean, he should be a game show guy on TV. He really makes it fun, and we have a big following on trivia night. But then, we try and, like I said, we're trying to work up to
Karaoke.
Okay.
I think y'all tried that before, right?
We did one karaoke night because the brewer was out of town, and the brewer hates karaoke. Steve does not like karaoke.
Not a fan.
Not a fan. I think he's seen too much very poorly executed karaoke.
Especially when there's beer involved. It can be
Yes.
very, very poor.
Yeah, so during Christmas, he needed to go out of town, and we did some Christmas caroling, I must say, and some very bad singing when he wasn't there. And there may be videos, but,
There's videos out there
Yeah,
somewhere,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. We laugh. The next time he goes out of town, I think he's out of town in April for something, and we're like, maybe it's another night to do a karaoke. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. So as we wrap up today, is there anything else that you want to let our audience know about that's coming up? Or I mean, I think we pretty much covered it all, right?
Well, I do have some exciting things happening in the end of January and into February. So I have a comedy night next Saturday night.
Okay.
It's $7 to get in. It's 6 comics. They'll stand up and do an hour show. They've been there one other time, and they were really, really good. These are like aspiring comics. Of the 6 we had last time, I would say 4 could easily be at the Improv or something. The other 2, it's their first rodeo, so they're working on it. But we'll have 6 new people come this next Saturday.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's very good.
Are they doing like 10-minute sets?
Right.
Okay.
They'll each do a set, something for everyone, male and female, very different group, kind of an eclectic mix, very fun. And then we have, obviously we're going to have an event for the Super Bowl. We have a painting party that's coming up that's online where a lady comes out and teaches you how to paint. This hello sign that goes on the front door. Steve and one of his engineering buddies is doing a beer and bacon pairing class and teaching you how to make the beer and how to make the bacon, and that's all online. We also have...
I mean, what's better than beer and bacon?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing. Absolutely not. I guess having your buddies there with you to learn and
Beer and bacon, yeah.
to learn together in a group. But yeah, and then our 1-year anniversary is coming up February 21st, 22nd, 23rd. That weekend, we're going to have a big blowout thing. We're going to have a food truck called Schnitzel and Giggles, and they have all German food. They're going to be here that whole weekend and serving schnitzels and brats and everything German and kind of fair food related.
Right.
And then we're going to culminate into a big party Saturday night, and we're going to have a German band, the band that plays at Bavarian Grill in Plano, which we love, by the way. Jurgen is awesome. Their whole full-piece band is going to come out and play Saturday night and just have a big party to let everyone know we survived a year. And, yeah.
That's amazing.
It's
going to be a good time.
It is. It's
Definitely
fun.
putting it on my calendar.
Well, thank you. The community's been awesome. It's fun to get to know more people in Wiley, and it's fun to get to see people come in that don't know other people in Wiley, and by the end of the night, they're sitting talking at the same table. And that's what we need. We can't, after COVID, I think we learned that we truly are people that need other people. And that's kind of what the brewery does. You don't have a time slot to get in and out. You're not rushed by a waitress or anything else. So it's just a good place to come out and chill.
Just come out, hang out, have a root beer if you don't drink.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's awesome. All right, cool. Let's one more time the address.
106 North Birmingham, and we are across the street from the train tracks. And you can park on the street. Eventually, you'll be able to park where everyone parks for the parade, in the grassy area will become something more permanent by the city. And then, of course, there's a city lot on Jackson that you can
right
park
behind
on.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. And then GlenEchoBrewing.com.
GlenEchoBrewing.com. We're open every day except Monday and Tuesday. So our hours are posted on our front door, on our back door. A lot of people park downtown or on Jackson Street and then walk in our back door. If we are open, our back door is unlocked, and that's kind of a good way to come in and out.
Yeah, that's the way I come in.
Yeah.
I always park there in the middle, back over there, and walk over.
Yep.
Good deal. Well, Debbie, it was an absolute pleasure to have you in today.
Thank you.
Learned a lot
Appreciate
of
it.
good stuff. And anyway, bye, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to the Live, Love, Wiley podcast. We'd love to have you following us on all social medias. That's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you'd like to subscribe on the YouTube channel, we'd love to have you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.